So you want to know the ins and outs of managing your money. Well, lucky for you, you're just in time for another episode of Master Your Finances with certified financial planner professional Kurt Baker. Kurt and his panel of experts are here for you and will cover topics from a legal and personal standpoint. They'll discuss tax efficiency, liability, owning, managing, and saving your money, and more. Master Your Finances is underwritten by Certified Wealth Management and Investment. Let's learn how we can better change our habits with Kurt Baker.
Good morning and welcome back to another edition of Master Your Finances, presented by Certified Wealth Management and Investment. I am Kurt Baker, a certified financial planner professional located in Princeton, New Jersey. I can be reached through our website, which is www.cwmi.us, or you can call me directly at 609-716-4700. This week, very pleased to have with us Sevi Adat. He immigrated to the UK from Uganda as a teen. He's been married for 25 years and has two boys. He was working in New York and studying at Indiana University. He's worked for three major perfume companies as a perfume designer. He left the corporate world back in October of 2017, started working as an entrepreneur in 2018 with a company called Heaven Scent. Then he restarted as Princeton Perfume Company in September 2019. Hobbies are golf, cooking, and spending quality time with good friends. And his dream is to take his family back to his place of birth. And his ambition is to help businesses in becoming more competitive in an increasingly tough environment. That's fantastic. And I know we met before also at F3, which is the men's group that works out in the morning, right? Free to all and outside, right? So great to have you on, Sevi, and I appreciate you coming in and talking about your story. And if you want, this is very interesting to me. It's such a niche area of the world. I know I had the CEO of Firmenich gave us talk about, just scents and the stuff we smell in the world and how the company touches like over half the world every day, because you don't really think about how much that stuff is involved in our daily lives. Something I knew very little about until I heard this. It was kind of amazing how important such a relatively small group of people have over our lives. So can you give us a little bit of background of how you got introduced to this area of the world and how you've grown into where you are today?
Sure. So first of all, thank you for having me on the show, Kurt. I'm always happy to share this amazing profession with the public. Perfume, like you say, touches everyone at some point in their lives, but very few people realize what it's about and how it can really create some fantastic memories. So my background started when I was in college and looking for a job, and I found a job as a technician in SC Johnson, formulating air fresheners, and air fresheners being primarily perfume. But at that time, I didn't even know the part that perfume played in everyday products. But as time went on, I was in SC Johnson for 9 years, and as time went on, I obviously was promoted to the chemist level, and at that time, you then really get exposed to all the supplies of perfume and the management of the brand, and I realized at that time that first of all, perfume is a huge component in everyday products, but secondly, and more importantly, is how much passion I had for perfume and just developing scents and just watching people react to different air freshener smells, for example. Yeah. And that passion kind of led me to a German company who recruited me, and they're now called Simrise. At that time, there were Harman and Reimer, but they that's where I really learned my trade. And to be honest with you, what better way than with a German company who are very methodical, very systematic, and you know, I was blessed. I was blessed to have that fantastic foundation, and what that also allowed me to do is to actually be able to get exposed to a lot of consumers outside of just the UK. So in doing so, I learned a lot about other consumers as well, to a point where I was then recruited by Firmenich. Yeah, so Firmenich are the top companies in the world, and they have an amazing group of professionals, a team of professionals around the world who who are very, very successful in developing and marketing perfumes. So it's Firmenich where I really kind of blossomed in and learned my fragrance design profession. Yeah, they have a great program for new people who join, and they take people through that program. And I was blessed, and I was lucky enough to go through the program, and then started to add value to the Firmenich projects and business. Yeah, through creating and helping create winning perfumes that even now are still on in some of the brands worldwide. Yeah. The other thing that Firmenich did for me, and I'm very, very grateful for that, is that I travel the world. Yeah. So perfume is one of these components in daily products which is universal everywhere, from the lowest demographic poverty to the most premium consumer. Everyone, perfume touches their lives. Perfume.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, you mentioned Firmenich, which, as you know, is a very local, large company near us. And when we first moved here, my wife and I really didn't know what it was. I just remember going by before they upgraded their system. I don't know what it was. You go by, and every once in a while, you'd smell like butterscotch. You smell this. I know they changed all that as the population, because it used to be in the middle of a farm, right? So it didn't really matter. But I know they upgraded, so you didn't really smell. You knew like what they were making that day. It seemed like, right? But one thing I also remember is they used to, and I don't know if they still do this or not, they would bring in the public and do sample testing, and they would, because I did this a couple times. I thought it was really fascinating. They give you like $5 or something to come in, and they would say, here's their different samples, and they would ask you a bunch of questions and what you thought. I thought it was very fascinating how they were trying to get public interaction there. And another thing that I found very interesting, and you can speak to this a little bit, is how the people, there's actually relatively small group of people who determines like what we like, right? Like I forget what they called them, but the people have a really good nose, I guess I'll just say it that way, that can kind of really detect things. It's almost like having somebody perfect pitch hearing, right? For, if you're in the musician, but apparently it's a very small elite group of people that can kind of do these things, right? And I was quite impressed, frankly. So,
that was my job. Yeah. To basically, I was the conduit between the consumer and the person who actually puts the chemicals together, the perfumer. Yeah. And as a conduit, as a kind of a go-between, my job was really to interpret what the consumer is saying and into a perfumer language. Yeah. So for example, if I was to say fresh, okay, what does fresh mean to you? Yeah. Okay.
Right.
What it means to you is going to be quite different from what it means to somebody else. Yeah. But when you smell a fragrance, when you smell a perfume, you will say it's fresh. The other person will say it's fresh as well. Yeah. And my job is to basically take that, you know, interpret that into something which is more meaningful for the person who's creating, who's putting the chemicals together. Yeah. So fresh, for example, could be, in the context of a brand, it could be freshly cut grass, green grass. It could be lavender. It could be another flower like rose. Or in some cases, it could be freshly baked bread, or freshly baked cookies, which is a vanilla note. So, you know, it means different things to different people. And the fascinating thing about what I do is to take that, interpret that into something which is much more meaningful to the perfumer, and then we can then put it into a blend and see how it then works with the consumer. Yeah. So that was my job, and it's a fascinating field. There's no science as such to it, but there's a lot of discipline associated with it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I definitely want to get into more about that, because I just find it's a very interesting part of our senses, so to speak, that I really never given a lot of thought to until somebody actually like started discussing it. We're going to take a quick break. You're listening to Master Your Finances. We're going to be right back.
This is Master Your Finances with Kurt Baker, Certified Financial Planner Professional. Learn about tax efficiency, liability, owning, managing, and saving your money, and more from Kurt and his experienced panel of guests. Master Your Finances is underwritten by Certified Wealth Management and Investment.
Welcome back. You're listening to Master Your Finances. I'm Kurt Baker here with Sevi Adat of Princeton Perfume Company. And you've been taking us through a little bit of the background, which I always found fascinating, you know, as I mentioned, when I was first exposed to this. And I know it has a lot more of an impact on our lives, like what we smell and how we smell it, and like why we have certain scents in certain products and things like that. So I don't know, you mind like kind of walking through a little bit of how it's impacted? I know there's a lot of areas, maybe just some of the highlights. I think we talked about it before, like, you know, certain scents like the grass, right? So I know I go and mow the grass and I go outside and I feel like I'm outside. It's fresh air, and I don't mind, you know, the fresh cut grass. Some people hate it afterwards, but it's like not like something I'd want to put in my laundry soap or my, you know, and things like that. I don't want to wear it all day. So I just thought that was interesting, how that chemistry, I mean, it really is chemistry reaction within our brains and our body, right? What's going on? Would you mind kind of explain a little bit about that and how you transition what we really want? And to me, it's very fascinating how all that works.
Sure. Yeah. It is very fascinating, and it's a very, very broad subject, Kurt. Yeah. So, you know, kind of to summarize it in a way, in a very few words. First of all, you're experiencing different smells from the day you're born. Yeah. So your memory is starting to form connections with smells. Your brain is forming connections with smells from the time you're born. Yeah. Mother's milk, for example, yeah, is something that is where your sense of smell starts. The baby doesn't necessarily, the baby basically smells the milk, yeah, on the mother. Yeah. That's where the memories start. Also, 75% of what we taste is based on smell. Okay, so you can imagine how powerful smell can be in determining whether a person is going to go forward, even walking in a house, for example, or eating rotten fruit, or, you know, the sense of smell is the most powerful. Okay.
Yeah, that's what they say. Where you bake the cookies, the chocolate chip cookies, or you make the apple pie, or you make, you know, some kind of really sweet dessert. That's one of those techniques that the realtors have talked about. I haven't seen it recently, but I know they used to do that. Like, you want to make the house smell really nice, right?
Yes.
Because when you go in, that is a trigger.
Yes.
And I know you maybe some little, and I think, don't they even? I heard this, and maybe you can validate this. Don't they
Mhm.
put scents into the air systems, into
Yes,
like large malls and things like that? They'll put a very subtle scent,
yes,
which helps elevate your mood, so you feel like
yeah,
it's a good place, I guess,
very
right? For
much,
lack of a better, I don't know the
very much.
technical term, but
And
it,
yeah, to build
which
on that,
I found that was fascinating.
yeah, yeah, yeah. To build
So they're
on
kind
that,
of sneaky about it a little bit sometimes.
yeah, I think, for example, to build on that, take casinos. Yeah,
Mm,
so casinos um, pump fresh fragrance into the air.
mm,
Okay, along with oxygen. Yeah, why is that? Because most casinos don't have any windows.
right.
Yeah, and so the people in the casino don't necessarily they don't want the people in the casino to know what time it is.
Yeah, no clocks, right?
No clocks, right? No clocks, no windows. Yeah,
Hmm.
and they keep them there, and they keep them awake through introducing a lot more oxygen than you can normally get in an environment,
Hmm.
and and uh, a scent which keeps them invigorated and awake. Yeah. So yeah, there is a, a lot that companies like that do. I think on the other side, you mentioned realtors,
Hmm.
and again the same thing. And I think the age of putting a fresh baked cookie in the oven before in an open house, yeah, it's still there in some cases, but I
Yeah.
think it's evolved into a lot more of a broader um, expectation. I think people expect, as I mentioned earlier, and we talked earlier, fresh. When they walk into a house, they want it to be fresh and clean. Yeah. Now, apart from decluttering, what every realtor will tell you is, declutter, make sure there's no personal pictures, etc. At the same time, um, there is an expectation that a house should have a fresh, clean smell. Yeah. Um, on the other side, a lot of realtors now are starting to not just have sprays, but they have diffusers with their own signature scent, so that as well as uh, the scent being fresh and clean, at the same time, when house buyers walk into the place, they can associate that smell with that realtor. Yeah, you know.
Well, that's fascinating because I know I think we'll go back to perfumes for a minute, right? So perfumes, if somebody wears a certain type of perfume and then you smell it, oh, that reminds me of so and so, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lingering smell, right? Maybe that because
Yeah,
they were there for a while and they leave, and you can still, you know somebody's there. That's kind of interesting. So the realtors, obviously, okay, your realtor, their goal, of course, is to sell the home.
yes,
And so if you develop a signature scent, I'm
yeah,
assuming that's going to be something that's going to be uplifting to a buyer that comes in, right? So you have
right.
some goals in mind, and you want to have a signature of the realtor. So how does that help the realtor in their marketing, as far as their marketing plan goes, right? To help them out.
Yeah,
I know they do things like open houses where they do caravans. They run realtors through,
yeah,
so the other realtors will know, oh, that's Susie Smith's house or whatever the case may be, right?
yeah,
Yeah, can you explain that how that all works? I think that's very fascinating, actually.
yeah. No, I think the whole point is that it is a very, very crowded landscape out there. If you
Hmm.
take the realtor, if you take the realtor profession, in a 35-mile radius from Princeton, there are 7,000 realtors.
Mm.
Okay, so how do they stand out from the crowd? Any brand, any business wants to stand out from the crowd, wants to acquire customers, wants to convert those customers to buying the product,
Hmm.
wants referrals. Yeah, so it's not, I don't think it's just about that particular house as such, but it's about creating a brand. Yeah.
Right.
um, and there's a lot of very, very savvy, smart realtors are starting to do that. Yeah, which is to actually create a brand so that people, when they talk about real estate, they associate it with a person. So that if I was to say to you, hey Kurt, I want to sell my house, do you know any good realtor? If that realtor can have uh, two or three points where you remember him or her by, yeah, you will recommend that person to me. Yeah. And as I've said before, the sense of smell is one of the biggest and most powerful memory makers. So if you can associate a realtor with his or her signature scent, that will trigger your memory.
So you're bringing back some memories now, having this conversation. I know, and I don't know if I've received anything recent about this, but sometimes you'll get mail or flyers or things that actually have a scent associated with it, right?
Yes.
Right. So they'll send you something. So how would you market? How would you use this in your marketing, right? Your branding. I mean, you can't use it on your website, right? Because the website, unfortunately, not yet, at least, we don't have scents coming through our computers.
No.
That'll be a little scary when that comes, because then they'll have all kinds of control over us, because we'll be able to control the smell in our house. But so how do you could use it in the home? So how do I market myself if I'm an agent, or any business for that matter, using the sense of smell?
Yeah, yes, that's and as obviously open house is one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. One of the other things that realtors do is they will. I think they must be the biggest consumers of business cards,
Right.
because they will leave cards at every port of call. Yeah. Now that's fine, but that's where I think they can gain a point of difference. And what do I mean by that? So take a standard business card. Okay, most of the time, that business card, when you are presented with a card, you will look at it and have a positive comment. Oh, interesting. And then you'll put it away, and then you'll go home and you'll put it in a stack of other business cards, never to be seen or referred to. Yeah. Whereas if you had a card which is scented, for example, and I've developed a patent. I've applied for a patent for a technology which for a scented card, purely and simply because what then happens is that card becomes, first of all, automatically they associate that name. They'll remember your name when you present them with the card. Secondly, they cannot throw that card away or put it in a stack, because it's too valuable. Yeah. And they'll keep on smelling it. Yeah.
Right.
If it contains essential oils, for example, like lavender, so there's you can actually, and I think a lot of people are looking at ways in which we can expose fragrance in everyday situations as a promotional products. Yeah. And for me anyway, I think business card is certainly one of the biggest opportunities to do that. Yeah.
Well, that's amazing. We're going to take another quick break here. You're listening to Master Your Finances. We're going to be right back.
This is Master Your Finances with Kurt Baker, Certified Financial Planner Professional. Learn about tax efficiency, liability, owning, managing, and saving your money, and more from Kurt and his experienced panel of guests. Master Your Finances is underwritten by Certified Wealth Management and Investment.
Welcome back. You're listening to Master Your Finances. I'm Kurt Baker here with Sevi, Adat, and we've been talking about a little bit about marketing, which I think is very unique with Sense, at least on the level you're talking about. I mean, large companies have been doing it forever. I mean, if you go buy laundry detergent, all these things, obviously they've known about this for many, many years. But to do it on a more individual basis, I'm assuming this came up while you were thinking about at Firmenich. So how did all this happen, and how did you evolve into kind of being on your own, if you don't mind me asking, how that evolution occurred?
Sure. So yeah, just my next evolution from Firmenich was with another company, another perfume company, and the company was based way up north in North Bergen County, which was, as you can imagine, from here to there everyday commute was just horrendous. So in 2017, actually, we parted our ways, and I spent the next 3 months just decompressing and flushing out the commute from my system before starting the company called Heaven Scent. Yeah, and the whole premise for Heaven Scent was based on the ability of perfumes to create memories for special occasions. And the one that I was aiming at was the most special occasion for most people, which is the wedding. Mm-hmm. And the reason is again based on personal experience, where and I remember when I got married, and it was actually nearly 25 years ago right now, and I remember seeing my wife, and I went, as we were standing next to each other, I could smell an amazing fragrance. It was rose, carnation, and a little bit of musk, and straight away I knew it was eternity. Yeah, which was one of the biggest perfumes at the time. Yeah, by Calvin Klein. Anyway, I asked her, and she said yes. Now, fast forward to 2018. Even now, whenever I encounter that smell, it always takes me back to that happy day. Yeah. And I thought, you know what, there's a germ of an idea here which we can build on with Heaven Scent, which is to offer couples their own fragrance, customizable, by having, let's say, a collection of. So I developed a collection of 5 perfumes, which could be used by themselves or could be used in combination with one another. Okay, so if you then combine perfume A with B, you create a totally different smell. Yeah, and the way to do that is to roll A on one wrist, B on another wrist, mix the 2 wrists, and bingo, you have your own blend. Yeah, so that was the whole premise of Heaven Scent, and it was great. People loved it, because what we also did then was to create a complimentary candle. Okay, so the reason for that is because one of the biggest tools, most popular tools for creating memories is the photo. So when you're at weddings, people will take thousands of photos. You will get a professional photographer who will take pictures and then present you with the album, or now it's all digital. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But the one thing that misses first of all, when you get those, you will look at them for the next month or so when everything is still fresh in your memory. After that, you'll put that away, never to revisit. Yeah. However, imagine burning a candle with that scent of your wedding day that will evoke those happy memories and take you back to that special occasion. Yeah. So that was the whole concept behind Heaven Scent. And when I started this, people loved it. I did some shows, events, and honestly, the feedback was amazing. Not just on the concept, but also on the fragrances that I was presenting. The only problem was that in a wedding list, in a registry list, um, the the idea of having favors or your own perfume or your own signature is way down the list. People are interested in the music, people are interested in the food,
Hmm.
the drinks, the venue, but not necessarily in creating a signature scent for their guests to remember them by. Yeah. So Heaven Sent, and then when I talk to people, they love the name Heaven Sent, but it didn't really necessarily take them to what services I was offering them.
Mm.
Okay, and as a startup business with very little funds for promotion, that was not a very good sign for me.
Right.
It was like, okay, um, it's a great name, but I have to change.
Right.
Yeah, the concept is great, but again, if the name doesn't and the brand doesn't necessarily jive with the concept, then I'm not really going to get any success out of this. Yeah, so that's when uh, I changed to Princeton Perfume Company. Yeah.
Well,
Now, yeah.
yeah, go ahead. No, that's great. I mean, so it sounds to me like I'm thinking out loud now. Like, so you had a great idea, but I think one of the issues you had is one, it's hard to market to the newlyweds where they're really not familiar with this, right? Because
Right.
it's not widely known yet, and they
Right.
would kind of be like, okay, that sounds like interesting, but I've got these other things ahead of it. But the idea is great, and a wedding, hopefully, you're doing one and that's it for a long time or forever, right? So
Right.
that's it, and so you're not getting a lot of repeat
Yeah.
business coming back saying, hey, we need to make more candles to send to our guests that were here 3 years ago or 4 years ago or whatever the case may be. So
Right.
you're not really developing a pipeline. And as any business knows, recurring income is the lifeblood. You have to establish a methodology that
Yes.
will help you to maintain an ongoing income stream of some kind through the referrals or whatever the case may be. That's
Yes.
hard with weddings until it's an established, known thing, right? I think is probably what you struggle with. So now you're like,
Yes.
how do I put this in a different the same idea,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe more in a corporate world? So
Right.
is that kind of what the evolution ended up being? And
Absolutely.
was realtors your first place to go? I mean, realtors, as they're marketers like nothing else, right? They
Yeah.
definitely, the good ones know how to market, and that's
Yes.
usually what makes the difference for them, is
Yes.
they are marketing experts, right?
Yep. Absolutely, Kurt. You hit the nail on the head. You as an entrepreneur and single business, I had to somehow pivot. I had to, and
Hmm.
this is, pivot is a word that's now being used for under the banner of COVID, but my pivot happened way before that.
Right.
And it was really, yeah, I'm at a crossroads, and I'm thinking, okay, I know that the idea, the concept is great,
So
but
so how did you roll this out? Now I'm gonna play. Now
right,
you've got a challenge, right? Now you've got to talk a realtor into do it. Who's
yeah,
like, okay, I'm sending out 1,000 mailers this week. I'm sending out cards. I'm sending out
yeah,
this. Okay. I mean, literally have a system in place. Most of them, right? The
yes,
ones that are good. How
yes.
did you talk? How did you market to somebody and say this is going to make your brand better? How did you interject yourself into that and get somebody to try it? And then once you did, what
Uh-huh.
started to happen at that point?
Yeah. So, and I'm still in the process of that kind of growth
Hmm.
phase. Yeah, but it's very interesting. I decided that what I was going to do was I looked at the business, the Heaven Sent business, and did an analysis and saw that actually 90% of my sales were coming through one-to-one interaction. If I could explain the concept to somebody and and get them to understand the power of perfume,
Hmm.
then 9 times out of 10, I would get a sale. So 90% of my sales were coming through that. Now, granted, it wasn't much at the time because this is a startup business, but still, it gave me a very interesting insight, which is the fact that if I wanted to grow this company, I had to go through the networking phase, okay, the face to face. In other words, expose and get myself in front of people as often and as much as possible. Okay, and I almost reconciled it to it being a numbers game. Okay, so it's not necessarily the type of person or a target consumer. It's just more, as many people as possible. Yeah. Now, at the same time, the services that I offered also changed because they were no longer the minimum order quantity was no longer one candle or one perfume. The minimum order quantity increased, still very, very reasonable in comparison to other companies, very reasonable. But the reason for doing that is because then I started to look at corporate business. You know, whether it's small business, medium, large, didn't matter. I targeted businesses, and I'm still in the process of developing that. However, the breakthrough came when I met an interior designer. Okay, and she, out of, you know, it's that typical, out of 100 people that you meet, there's one person who is going to be your early adopter. Yeah, and she was that person.
Well, that's absolutely fantastic. We're going to talk more about that right after another quick break. You're listening to Master Your Finances. We'll be right back.
This is Master Your Finances with Kurt Baker, Certified Financial Planner Professional. Learn about tax efficiency, liability, owning, managing, and saving your money, and more from Kurt and his experienced panel of guests. Master Your Finances is underwritten by Certified Wealth Management and Investment.
Welcome back. You're listening to Master Your Finances. I'm Kurt Baker here with Sevi Adat of Princeton Perfume Company. Entrepreneur, got a lot of corporate background, a lot of expertise, and you're starting in an area that's really, really interesting. Kind of, to me, it's almost like a niche within a niche, right? You got Sense, which is everywhere, but from a business standpoint, it's a relatively small number of people that do this, even though it has a wide spread. Now you're really kind of tailoring it down, and you're doing what every single business has had to do that started from scratch. Is now you have to sell your concept and go out there. And I think you brought up some fantastic points in the last segment. Is I think a lot of people think that you have to have the money to start the business, where in fact it's you need really the sales, you need the network, you need the connections, you need all of that. Once you find the right people and you tailor your business model around that, you're always tweaking. Businesses are constantly evolving to meet whatever those contacts want and what you can provide. And I think you mentioned that you had an interior designer, right? So you were talking about maybe 1 in 100. So you have a very, you have to meet a lot of people, I guess, is really, because you've got two things. You've got a new business, you've got a new concept that you have to really explain to people. how it all works and why it works, right? So you've got an extra level of, education that has to go on to meet. So it's even a little more difficult than other types of businesses that may exist in some form, right?
Mhm.
So how did that work out? You met that designer. Can you kind of take us through the story of how, that went forward from there?
Sure. So yeah, we got discussing on her business and on my business, and then she had always had this idea that she wanted to launch her own home care perfume line, fragrance line for
Mm.
homes. So she asked me if I could develop a candle for her and a special signature scent for her. Okay, and and that's how the whole thing started. So I asked her a few questions about what her likes were, what type of experience she wanted to create for her customers, and I presented her with a range of scents, different types of scents. And basically just to narrow down on what her preferences would be, and from that she selected two, and then we talked some more, and it turned out that what she was looking for was to create a rich experience of walking into a library, which was with a teakwood table. Okay. So as soon as I kind of articulated that to her, she was, yep, absolutely. That's it. And so then I went into developing the teakwood scent.
Mm.
Yeah. And that's, and again, we had 2-3 iterations of the scent. And she then selected the one that she liked. I then presented that to her in a finished candle form.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And she approved it, and that's how the whole thing started. Yeah. So now she has her own candle with her own logo, which is with her own signature scent, all provided to her by Princeton Perfume Company. Yeah.
Well, that's fascinating. 'Cause you just triggered something for me, as far as, because people make like wines and things, right? I mean, this is kind of correlating a little bit to creating something unique to your business, labeling it, selling it, or most of the case, are giving them out. I know in our business, they'll get groups together, and I can kind of imagine something happening in this way too, where you say, "Hey, let's create something. We'll
Yeah.
design it together as a
Mhm.
team building thing, right?" Once you
Yeah.
decide on what you're going to do and create like this logo that their logo they're going to put on it, then they can send it out to their clients, right? And say,
Yeah.
"Here we go. Here's a thank you gift for doing business with us.
Yeah.
I hope you enjoy." I can definitely see that as being a marketing
Absolutely.
deal and a team building thing, right? Because you can get a couple people
Yeah.
together in an office and have them come together and kind of decide what they want to do
Yeah.
together, right?
Correct. And the interesting thing is that it's not just, you can go to online catalogs and get candles with a very generic vanilla or melon, but these are more tailored and customized scents. This
Hmm.
is much more for you and your preferences and your brand. Yeah. And you're right, and then they can be used for many different occasions. Yeah, there's a holiday season coming up, just general corporate gifting, but they're not your swag. Yeah, they're
Right.
much more premium gifts that you would make your customer feel very special by giving them that gift. Yeah.
So if you give, I mean, I'll just go to my industry for a minute. Things like
Yeah.
financial services is famous for being unable. It's very difficult to describe it in the sense of marketing, right?
Yes.
Because you're really trying to build trust,
Yeah.
understanding, compassion. There's a lot of these like feelings that you're trying to create for somebody when you create any kind of marketing.
Mm-hmm.
And the big boys even they're constantly trying to update and change these things because it's hard. it's a very difficult thing to do from a marketing perspective. What it really comes down to is a one-on-one relationship and trusting that person is sitting across the table from you, so to speak.
Yeah.
But so how do you like do those analysis and say, okay, well, here's how I'm going to help you
Yeah.
present this particular image
Yeah.
that may not be very tangible in some cases?
No, it's very interesting. You talk about financial service. So I'm actually service. I provide a diffuser for the office for a financial consultant, 2 financial consultants. Yeah, and the idea there is again to do with the fact that financial consultancy generally for the layperson, for the customer coming into your office, you know, there are many financial consultants. So how do you differentiate yourself?
Mm-hmm.
How do you become more memorable than another person? Yeah, and everyone's first impression is the most important. So when someone walks into the office, that first impression is absolutely key, and it can determine whether they're going to stay in that office or whether they want to leave as quickly as possible. Yeah, and that subliminal cue of a fresh scent can be very important to making them stay and buy a product. Okay, whether that's going into a supermarket or whether that's going into a financial consultancy office. Yeah, it's the sense of smell, and that subliminal olfactive cue is probably one of the most important ways in which people make a purchasing decision.
Yeah, no, I've learned that, and I appreciate explaining that. You want to tell us a little bit about how you have had to pivot, because everybody has in some way, shape, or form. You're dealing with a new company in a niche market with something that's very much, the sense of smell. We have to be together somehow. How are you marketing since our March kind of interruption, so to speak, which we're not sure when it's going to be over, and we're doing less one-on-one? I know things like even the BNIs. I know you belong to the Princeton Mercer Chamber, Regional Chamber. We're doing a lot of stuff virtually with limited things in person. So how are you able to convey this in the current environment?
Yeah, it's a process, Kurt. Yeah, and I think I'd be a millionaire if I was to tell you exactly what that process was, because I'm still learning. But it is a process, and whether it's right or wrong is down to the individual judgment, I guess. But in my case, I've increased my my networking and my presence amongst all the networking groups. So whether that's the Chamber of Commerce, and although BNI doesn't meet on a face-to-face, in fact, for me, it works very well because I can join many BNI groups virtually around the country and talk about my services. The second is that sampling. So how do you get your product across to the consumer, to the customer? And this is where cost-effective sampling helps in my case. And so the card that I talked about, the business card that I talked about, has really come into play and has taken a life of its own, because now I use that same card to sample different scents to customers, and I can send it to them at a very cost-effective rate. And if they decide to take up the services, then they don't pay for that product box. If they don't, then there's a minimum fee involved in it. Yeah, so that's one way. The other one that I've done is I've pivoted, and I now make essential oil blends. Okay? But as well as that, I work with a mind and body holistic place in Hoboken, and we are developing corporate workshops, because one of the insights from COVID was that people are zoomed out. People have got Zoom fatigue.
True.
Yeah. And when they have happy hours are supposed to help people overcome Zoom fatigue and talk about something else. In fact, most of the time when they have happy hours, they still talk about work. Okay. Whereas the workshops that we have developed, what happens is that I send, and it's a collaboration. So I send a small kit of essential oils ahead of time to the participants. And then during the Zoom call, during the Zoom happy hour, if you want, I take them through how to blend, how to make a blend using the essential oils. Okay, so there's a lot of customer engagement. And then my collaborator, okay, will then take them through how to meditate and have that blend, use that blend in the meditation process. Yeah. And the way they work, they use that blend is that we have a small diffuser that you can plug into the USB on your computer. Okay. And you add a few drops of the blend into the diffuser, and it diffuses into the air and creates your healthy signature bubble for you. Yeah. You know, and so that's how we have pivoted. So we've gone more essential oils. And when people talk about essential oils, the perception and the bridge is much easier to go towards health, well-being, and self-care. Yeah.
Yeah, that's obviously a big topic these days, trying to stay healthy for sure. I mean, you've been amazing. I appreciate it. I've learned a lot about the sense of smell and how important it is, and how powerful it can be, just in many aspects, including branding and things like that. Thanks again for coming on today. You've been listening to Master Your Finances. I'm Kurt Baker. I can be reached at 609-716-4700. You can subscribe to this podcast and all the podcasts we have by going to masteryourfinances.us. Remember, together we can master your finances so you can enjoy financial peace of mind.
That was this week's episode of Master Your Finances with Kurt Baker, Certified Financial Planner Professional. Tune in every Sunday at 9 a.m. to expand your knowledge in building and managing your wealth. Missed an episode? No worries. You can subscribe to a free weekly episode of Master Your Finances to listen to on your favorite podcasting platform. Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, whatever. Master Your Finances is underwritten by Certified Wealth Management and Investment. Only on 107.7 The Bronx.